We've been looking at the fruit of the Spirit as listed in Paul's letter to Galatia, chapter 5, verses 22 and 23. You know, it was early on in my tenure with you as a transition pastor that we looked at this list as aspirational in the sense that we all, as Christ followers, long to grow into the likeness of Christ. This lens of transformation is key in our life together as a community of faith, as a church, and it always begins with love. Love's the fountain of life, and the soul which does not drink from it cannot be called alive. These are the ancient words of Bernard of Clairvaux, 11th, 12th centuries, a great lover of God, and he's considered the last of the church fathers. Bernard was a Cistercian monk, and he followed very strict disciplines. In a devotional classic entitled The Love of God, he explains what divine love is, how we grow and develop in the perfect love of God, which of course has come to us in Jesus. It's in this classic that he presents what he calls 4 degrees of love, which are a model, I think, for spiritual development in Christ's likeness. First, there's the love of self for self's sake. This would be characterized by our tendency to store up earthly treasures, a kind of narcissism, a love of self, self-preservation, self-actualization for all that it can bring to ourselves. This posture is precisely what Jesus came to save us from, because love of self for self's sake always ends in dissatisfaction. The next stage is love of God for self's sake. And it's here that the focus is not totally on self, because there's an awareness of God as creator and provider. Here we love God for what God can do for us. This stage doesn't ultimately satisfy the needs of our hearts, does it? Bernard laments that this stage is about as far as we ever get as humans. And I'm afraid that's true for many of us, especially for many of us in the church today. So let's ask ourselves, are we simply intent upon God, upon the Holy Spirit, accomplishing for us what is already on our own agenda? You know, kind of a checklist. Well, the third phase is love of God for God's sake. Here, one realizes that God has value, not because of what God can do for us, but for who God is. In this stage, we begin to see that our relationship originates from and belongs to God. God's desires for us become our desires. We follow Jesus because we want to know Jesus. We want to be with Jesus. Our affections for Jesus draw us to Him. Our love of God is not to necessarily get anything. We have a genuine desire to please God. Love of God for God's sake is like that. We want to be with God for who God is and nothing else. And this brings us then to Bernard's fourth stage, love of self for God's sake. Now, this may sound a bit surprising to you, love of self for God's sake, because it rather seems like the love of God for God's sake would be the ultimate level or stage, but not according to Bernard. If I ask you, for example, if I ask you whether or not you are talented, gifted, the majority of you would slip into a kind of self-deprecation mode. We all do it, and that would be my instinct as well. However, we really shouldn't do that. Self-loathing is not of God. We, you, I, we are to live as if God knew exactly what God was doing when God created you and me. We pick up this kind of self-deprecation early in life. The belief that I'm not good enough, that you're not good enough, that somebody's much better, more qualified, much smarter, faster, better looking, you fill in the blank. This fourth stage, love of self for God's sake, frees us up. It frees us up to truly be disciples of Jesus, to focus solely on our place in God's kingdom. You're blessed. I'm blessed. The kingdom is for you, for me, just as it is for everyone else. If we could just understand this, receive this, and in turn love ourselves for God's sake, I believe we truly do have the recipe to love one another well. We're going to look at these stages individually this week, so I hope you'll join me. Stay safe, stay well, and stay connected as you are able this week, this day. And above all, love God, love your neighbor, love yourself. This is the greatest commandment. Blessings.